Before kingdoms change, men must change.
This is KC from Ground Control. Is there anybody out there? This is KC on transmission 177.6. Is there anybody out there? This is Sergeant C from the Resistance. Is there anybody out there? I don't know, sir. Maybe there's just no one left.
Before kingdoms change, men must change.
For he who would be great among you must be your servant. He who would be the first must be your slave. Just as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many.
Greetings and welcome, my friends. I hope the audio doesn't sound as bad on your end as it does in my headphones right now. Let me just check a couple things. Greetings, brothers and sisters, and welcome. I'm glad to be with you another day. This is going to annoy me the whole time, but let me do a real quick check for just a second, folks, if that's all right with you. Hang on just a minute. Okay, it's a little muffled. I don't know why, folks, but forgive me for that. I'll check that in the time that I have between shows. It was working fine the other day when I just messed with it. But anyway, welcome. Thank you for being with me, my brothers and sisters. It is another day underneath heaven above. Lots going on, isn't it? Man, we have troops in the streets. That's not something that I would have thought that I would have ever seen while I was alive, especially when I was younger. But I guess in the last decade or so, we've all known it was coming. Many people have talked about this, and it just seemed like, okay, this is maybe something they're not right about. This is just too much, but now we're there. And with that, let me get to one of the stories. I don't think I've told this yet, but it's kind of one of the foundations of what I'm doing here. But have you ever heard the story of the Zen Master? I've seen it in many places. I've even seen it in a few movies. But it kind of goes like this. It's an Eastern philosophy story. But there's a Zen Master in a small village, and a little boy gets a pony for his birthday. And everybody in the village says, "Oh, how wonderful. It's just so wonderful. That's amazing." And they go to the Zen Master, "What do you think?" And the Zen Master says, "Well, we'll see." Sometime later, the little boy falls off the pony. And everybody in the village, "Oh, that's so horrible. Poor boy. What do you think, Zen Master?" And he says, "Well, we'll see." Not too long after that, a war breaks out in the country, and they come to take all the young men off as conscripts. And the little boy can't go because of his legs still messed up, and everybody in the village goes, "How wonderful. That's just great he doesn't have to go. What do you think, Zen Master?" Now, what do you think he said? "We'll see," right? We'll see. So all of this going on right now, and all of it that goes on all the time, I guess we'll see. But it isn't looking good for the home team right now, is it? Well, let me just start right there Well, actually, let me go a little bit in a different direction for just a minute. Okay. So you can kind of tell the theme of this has a bit of a spiritual theme to it. Before kingdoms change, folks. This is why, and let me start here because I saw something from a major podcaster that's they were saying, MAGA is dead, yada yada yada. And my immediate thought it was never alive to start with in the sense of the way it's framed because it's built on something that's foundationally flawed, meaning it was a campaign slogan that if you elect this person, that they were going to make America great again, or that Congress can make America great again. And that's the failed foundational belief because governments don't change kingdoms, men do. So before kingdoms can change, men must change, right? It's in the beginning every time. I play it several times through it. And that's why the other part, you have to change the man, or in your case, if you're a woman, the person in the mirror, right? That's what has to change. So to tag that along with these troops in the streets everywhere. Okay, so let's say they go in for a little while and the crime goes down because obviously if you put a bunch of peacekeepers, whatever you want to call them, stormtroopers, Gestapo, on the streets and they roam it daily, of course you're going to get but they're not going to change the hearts and minds of the people that they're doing this to. So do they go away? Now that's a interesting question. I guess we'll see on that one, right? In fact, I've heard from the man himself that wants to expand this to other places. Okay. Now, as I've been looking through, promoting the show, I do it on X and try to do it on the few platforms that we stream on, or that I stream on. There ain't no we here. It's the royal we. To quote the dude Lebowski, it's the royal we. I'm a one-man show here. I'm doing it all. That's why, hopefully, I keep wanting to go check over because I knew this was going to drive me crazy. But I have a lot of things I do in the background, so I tried to fix it a little bit before, unconnect the microphone. Hopefully, it's not as annoying to you as it is to me. If you want to leave a comment somewhere and go, hey, KC, the sound is, I'll redo the whole show another day. But anyway, let me move on. If this expands to other places, I guess we're going to see if it does. But as I was going through, I hear people cheering for it, saying, this is what I voted for. And maybe you did. Maybe this is what you wanted. I hope not, because it's certainly not what I wanted. And I put out this week, being as a former active duty service member, if I would have ever been given the order to go in American streets to police American people, that would have been an order I would not have followed. And there have been many illegal orders that I've been given in the military. In fact, I think I've covered this before. My role at one point, I had a staff position for the command, was to make sure I was the legal liaison between the Judge Advocate General's office and the command group to make sure that everything ran legally and that we were keeping all regulations in regards to anything involving personnel. And I can't tell you how many times I had to correct officers. Now, I was lower enlisted at the time. I finally became a non-commissioned officer while I was doing it, but I started off as a lower-ranking enlisted person doing this job. So I often had to tell people who outranked me, even on the enlisted side, by 5 ranks, and then on the officer side, all the way up the chain. And I got some not so pleasant reactions when I did. But that was the job they gave me. And I at least had decent, very decent men as in the command group that kind of protected me from any repercussions, at least directly. In fact, I had one high ranking person say, when you get back to my unit, your butt's mine. And he chewed me out and left the office. And right after that, the command group came in, said, "Come in the office for a second there, specialist. Don't worry, you're never going back there. We know." Because we had just done a sexual harassment investigation into this person. It's 20 to 30 something charges, even other ranking people witnessing some of that. You had to take a high ranking person out of a soldier's room. Other people did. Now, the command above us ended up sweeping it all under the rug. So, here you go. Here's another one. People came to me. I don't know why. Well, I do know why, but I just can. Because I was never the person, and I got this, I guess, from my mom. A little bit my dad, but my mom for sure. That just didn't put up with stuff like that. And from the moment you go in the military, everything is hammered into you. Integrity, honesty, all these things. And then slowly you find out they don't want that, not so much. But I was all in for it. I was fine with that. So, hey, I tried to live it and work in that way to the best of my ability. But I actually had a commander try to send troops down to the combat zone without any authorization from his higher officers, actually somehow got an Air Force plane to take the troops down there and was going to negotiate country clearance en route. Fake the orders, the whole 9 yards, everything. And I had people coming to me, even higher ranking than me, going, "Hey, you got to go say something about this." And I would look at them and go, "Well, you're the one in a position to do something about it." And you know what they would say? "Well, I got my retirement to think about." Now, I'm not saying that to condemn these people. I get that. I understand it, even though I don't agree with it. And I lost a bit of respect for these folks, but I get why. But even at those levels, people don't want to challenge the authority around them. So, anyway, I have fought illegal orders on multiple times, and I would not, as active duty, reserve, now, I would have never joined the Guard, not because there's anything wrong with the Guard. I just understand how it works on the inside. I've known some very high-ranking people in that as well, general, and others. So I just would not have gone that route. The reserves kind of mirror the active duty. National Guard's a whole nother beast. But I would not have done that order. And I kind of worry for the folks that are doing it. And for all those who are cheering, I put this out in response to something the other day. It's like, cheer now. This is coming to a city, or it may be, because there have been people talking about this, that this is what's coming. I don't know if you've ever heard of Agenda 2030. Go look it up out there. It's been on the books for a long time. And, David Icke often says that if you know the destination, it's easy to see, or easier to see, the journey to get to that destination. So all these alt media podcasters and people that have been talking for years and years and years, many of them, and I won't mention names to protect the innocent and the guilty, but they've been talking about seeing this coming, and all of a sudden now it's like they can't see. And Operation Trump is it's been played on them like a Stradivarius. It's been so complete and so deep that even the people that say they can see all of a sudden can't see this. And they're the ones that have been talking about it coming for at least a decade, and some in cases even longer. I'll give you a perfect example. There's one out there, major, biggest, you'd know the name if I said it, more than likely, if you've ever watched anything in the alt media, covered and made their bones on covering the Bilderberg Group. I think I mentioned this already in a previous episode. I only have 3, so there's only 2 others. This is number 3 here. And when they first started covering it, the media and everybody else said it was just a conspiracy theory, it didn't exist, yada, yada, yada. But they kept going on it. And now they're actually supporting and have supported getting this current administration in office when the VP that this president picked, his money man, sugar daddy, whatever you want to call it, Peter Thiel, is on the Bilderberg steering group. That is one of those groups of the day. People always ask or have several times to me, who's this they? Well, the Bilderberg group is one of those days, at least a front for it. How does that end up? How do you go for X amount of time raging against this group and then all of a sudden you flip to supporting it without even kind of knowing that you are in a way? I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, but I'm going to say in a couple cases that I'm giving them the benefit of a doubt that they haven't sold out, that they're just being played. And I'll go into this a little bit deeper anyway. But this is coming. This police state they've been talking about, and it's coming to a city near you. And all these folks that are cheering and waving the flag now for it, what are you going to do when it's at your front door? That might be a different story. And I said this in my reply the other day was, when it does get to your front door, I don't want to hear it. In fact, I said, in the immortal words of Billy Joel, when it happens to you, don't go cry in your coffee. Just don't come bitching to me, right? It's words from a song. So I'm just quoting there. I try not to use any foul language in case there are children around or whatever. I just try to stay away from that. Although, when I'm hot off the mic, I can let many of them fly. But this gets down to an even deeper level in the sense of this is a spiritual battle, folks. I'm not the first person to say this, but this is good versus evil on a much deeper level, at the spiritual level. And we all have a choice for this. And what we're in desperate need for, and this is kind of true always, is a spiritual and a mental revolution. You know, this isn't going to happen. Or if it does happen and change ever happens, the only way it can last or be real is if it's changed not by force, but change from within. A mental change. Now, you hear me say it, I say it all the time, in the sense we have to have resistance, right? I've said it many times, and it's going to get me in trouble one day if I'm not already there, but civil disobedience. Read I think it's David Allen Thoreau's pamphlet book on it. The key word there being civil. Take January 6th, for instance. What if, just a what if for a moment, indulge me if you would, but nobody broke into anything, or even when because folks, and I'm going to say something that's probably going to catch a few ears and go, oh, now Captain Casey's lost it, but that was an operation too. The people that got sucked into it because they didn't control their own behavior. Now, some of the people that went and broke and started that windows, they were operatives of the government. Make no mistake about it. In fact, I'll give you a real short one here. I know through my father, somebody high-ranking, used to go to the gun range with him all the time, high-ranking in military operations. I'm going to leave it at that, protect the innocent and the guilty in this. I don't live too far from DC, and I was thinking about going. In fact, I had just dropped my mom off at the airport a couple days before January, like January 4th or maybe even the 5th. She was visiting for the holidays and going back, and I saw all the people coming in, and I thought about just going to check it out. And I was talking to this person. Hey, I'm thinking about going. They said, don't. And it struck me weird. I was like, what do you mean, don't? Why? You and your boys going to be there for some reason? I can't say anything. Just don't go. I was like, uh-oh. So when I saw everything pop off, I thought, oh, now I know why they didn't want me to go. So anyway, believe me, it was an operation, and these people got sucked into it. So other than the fools and ones that were government operatives that started doing some of this chaos, what if everyone else would have just sat back, sat down, no clashes with the police? And if you are going to resist, don't clash with the police. Don't get in their faces. Don't yell. None of that. That's just going to give them an excuse to act. But what if everybody had to just sat and either in silence, prayed, talked to one another, but didn't go not even past one barricade? And they were just going to sit there. And by their presence alone and all the rest of it, and their peaceful, civil resistance. Think of it this way. Let me put it to you in another way. In the story of the Garden of Gethsemane, when the master was taken and arrested, Peter, according to the story, chopped off one of the soldiers' ears and attacked them, and the master stopped him. Not only did he put the soldier's ear back on, I mean, that's miracle enough, right? But no, that's not what he wanted. So if the master himself didn't want that kind of resistance, then take that as an example. But what if they had done it? What would have been the reaction then? Now, I'm not saying it would have changed everything and the government would have collapsed and they would have fixed this or that, but it would have been different. And they wouldn't have had all the other stuff that they had, the propaganda, the everything else that they were able to use that for. Governments, I was thinking about this, and it kind of goes along with this. Since I've been young, everybody, things are different. Well, one thing that isn't different since I've been young, and I was born in the late 60s, is governments haven't changed at all. I don't care what team red, team blue, whatever you have in the positions of power, White House, Congress, that hasn't changed. But what has changed is the people. There are behaviors that I see and the way people act that I can't imagine seeing as a young. I'm not saying there weren't any protests. I mean, you can go back to the 60s and the rest of it. But just the way people act in public. People getting shot at McDonald's employees shooting people, all kind over just crazy stuff. And I'll give you even a more basic example and use the current administration. So for all of those folks out there that, the two people, the president that we have in his office and his spouse are the greatest thing since sliced bread, and they've given up so much, and the first lady is such an example and all of this. And I remember not too long ago, and sometimes but for a while there, they used to talk about Hillary Clinton being the most cheated on woman in the world. Well, with the current first lady in office, she may give her a run for that one. I mean, here you go. I'll give you a perfect example. I guess it was Howard Stern's show at one time, our current president said that he holds the record for sleeping with the most beautiful women in the world. No one else has slept with as many beautiful women as he has. And then we all know the story of the porn star and the other other people that while this lady was pregnant, this man was doing what he did. Now, when I was growing up, and even I know a lot of ladies, young ladies, middle aged ladies, older ladies, nobody would have tolerated that. Who? Let me ask you out there, of all these folks that are supporting this and supposedly followers of the masters, call themselves Christians, evangelicals, whatever you want. And I hate using labels for stuff. I'm going to get to that in a second, too. That's one of the ways of resisting. But how many of you ladies out there would point to this lady and say that's what you want your daughter to do? I tell you what, young lady, when you grow up and get married and you're pregnant and your husband runs around on you and sleeps with this person, that person, that person, and that person, you just go ahead and stay. Now, don't get me wrong. Somebody, whether it be the man or the woman, has an affair. I get that people can save their marriages through that if both want. But there's something beyond this in this situation. But really, how many fathers and mothers will want their daughters to follow that example or marry someone like that? Or be in a club, go to the club where all the wealthy men are hanging out and just in debauchery and the rest of it, and that's where you go find your husband at. Pick one of them. Okay, everybody's free to choose, but is that really the example everybody wants? Now let me go back for a second, if I may, to when I was talking about the way we resist this being a spiritual battle. Now, and I've read this before, and I'll dig it up here shortly, but the RFK quote about, not all of us will have the ability to be in a position where we can alter history, but each of us, every day, with small acts that we do, anytime that we're kind to another human being, or anytime we try to relieve the suffering of another human being, or just basically doing the right, decent thing, that one, coupled with millions of people and the millions of others acts in this nature, can create a wave of movement that can overcome anything. So, first off, the ways to resist are just to be decent, kind people on a daily basis, moral. You don't need to have religion or believe in this to be a moral, decent person. There are lots of people out there that may not believe in religion or the master at all. I've known some of them, but they still believe in being decent, moral people. And there's other ways you can resist too. And they may not immediately change, but think of millions of people just decide to do this. One of them is, they want to move us to a digital currency. Use cash. Use cash as much as you can. Because one of the things, the way they're going to be able to move it in so easily is because people don't. And it's convenient. Don't misunderstand me. I totally get it. But little acts where it might be a slight inconvenience, if we do them enough and on a large enough way, it is a small act of resistance. And even deeper, let's go from the change within. Can we stop using labels for everybody? There are Democrats, Republicans, this and that. Look, folks, it's not a Democrat doing something or a Republican doing something. That might be their political affiliation. But what it is people, a person doing something. And I try to do it on the show. I try to do it in my campaigns, not use certain words, because whenever we use labels or what, the brain just shuts down. It's just kind of, and people, we all have the image. There's a fairly famous philosopher from, I think, the early 1900s, and he used to say, people don't communicate very well in the sense of use one word. Like if I use the word man or woman, if I'm talking to 50 different people, you're going to get 50 different interpretations or what they think. We'd all not seen the same thing. So it really goes when we use labels for people or to label things. It's not this ethnic group doing this or that ethnic group doing that. It's people, individual people making these choices to do. So these are just basic little ways that we can fight back and resist. Now, if we ever want to get to larger ones, we're going to have to come together, and that the probability of that happening on a regular basis is low. That's why the history of man, even probably the one before we know of, is always someone or a small group of people trying to control and manipulate the larger group of people. It's from kings, rulers, happens all the time. It's the way that a few thousand, if it's even that many, take China for instance, can rule 1 billion. If 1 billion people want to go or do a certain thing, there's no way 100 or 1,000 people or even their own army are going to be able to stop them. In fact, that's one of the things of American exceptionalism that I've talked about before. It's not because we're American that we're exceptional. What's exceptional about America is it's the first time, basically in human history, where a small group of people got to choose their own form of government and decide they weren't going to consent anymore. It's just the way history works, folks. And now it come back the other way. And if we're ever going to overcome this, it's going to be another revolution. But let not a shot be fired or a person injured, at least on the side that we're resisting. You can guarantee, even if it's a peaceful resistance and nobody even lifts a finger to harm the people that they're resisting against, governments, tyrants will always use violence against those that they're trying to suppress. Always. Always, always, always. That's what governments do. And that's one of the things when I'm looking through different headlines or I'm listening and watching what people are saying. When in America did government become the end all be all of everything? How did this come about? How? Government, I mean, just because you hear me quote people sometimes, folks, doesn't mean I think they were the best people or that they were perfect or this or that. But if they say something that's true, it's just true. But, early in Ronald Reagan's career, he railed against government. Government's not the solution, it's the problem. It always will be. I'll give you some examples. I guess now CNN has been thrown out of the Pentagon. Another one I saw was that the president's going to write an executive order or reversing the Obama era propaganda bill that was passed. First off, and this is always the question, who decides what is propaganda or who decides what is this or that? Because whoever defines it, I mean, that makes a big difference, huge difference. But it struck me. Okay, so you kick CNN out of the Pentagon, and that's going to stop all propaganda? Okay. That's what governments do. Even if the current president undoes this bill, what? Did propaganda or whatever not exist before this bill? And whatever executive order he writes, it's going to magically stop it? Governments, and ours especially, they lie, they cheat, they steal, they kill. That's what they do. Government, more than anything, any institution, even more than religion, more than anything, is a control mechanism. Remember this from Thomas Paine. Government, at its best, is a necessary, wait for it, evil. Evil. Not an inconvenience, not of this, not of that. Evil. So that means it doesn't come from heaven above or sanctioned by heaven above at all. It's evil and will always be evil. Evil. Even ours, everybody thinks 1776, Declaration of Independence, we had all these perfect people, and then everything just went on. Oh, chonky dory, and we've been free ever since. No, no. Even if the men that founded this country were great men, there were evil men among them trying to fight it. So I just do not understand this idea that government is going to solve anything. Nothing. Now don't get me wrong, you can have, if we ever did or we ever will, somebody in government like a president come along and help lead people in that direction. But it's still going to be the people. Let me remind everyone, we do not have a democracy. A democracy is everybody gets one vote on everything. Every bill, everything. Now we have elements of a democracy, but our form of government based on one thing only, and that's the consent of the people. In fact, I saw something else, somebody mentioning, trying to remember what it was now because it come across so much. Oh, that people's money has been stolen and their dignity has been taken away. Their money, their fortunes, and their dignity have been taken away. And I had to go, by government and other people. No, they weren't stolen. They were surrendered. Anytime this endless taxation, the whole 9 yards of it, it's not being stolen. We surrender it. Whatever we consent to is what they get away with and what they'll do. That's why all the propaganda, all the mind control, all of it is because they have to have our consent. Now, is it likely that en masse that we are going to not consent? I see the proof and all the arguments that we're not going to get everybody together. That's why that we stay divided, this red, this blue, Democrats, Republicans, all this division. It's why they have to keep it that way. Because the thing that they fear most is a similar situation to a January 6th, but where people don't do those things. In fact, it's really why they killed Martin Luther King, folks. And if you think I'm sounding crazy, I will find the clip. I have it somewhere, maybe during the break, but definitely for next show, where Martin Luther King's family, his son, his wife, his daughters, his whole family is in an interview saying, the interviewer, I think it's somebody like from 60 Minutes or something, going, well, who killed your dad and your husband? And they said, well, what we're told, it was military intelligence, the FBI, the CIA. This is them saying that. Now, why they've gone silent since this, I have no idea. But that was them saying that. And what he was going to do was take, and this is what he was doing in Memphis at the time, but he was preparing to take 1 million people to Washington and stay as long as it took to get change, to get their attention. Now, this wouldn't have been the first time. You go back, I forget, I know there was certainly one after World War I when the veterans felt like they hadn't gotten something the government promised them, and they went there. Well, they eventually had, I think it was a very famous General MacArthur or somebody like that, come in and run them out with tanks and everything else, I believe. I mean, destroyed the camps, everything. But they weren't going to let Martin Luther King and that group of people get there. In fact, I think this was during Johnson. There was a plan to use the military to meet them if they were coming there, to not let them get in the city. But that's what he was planning to do. That's why he had to go. So they fear us coming together and exerting our own will more than they fear anything, except maybe not taking our money and having trillions of dollars to spend. So let me leave you with those thoughts for a few moments. Take a few minutes break. Leave you with some of the how do I say, themes and some of the things that I think that are most important in the world. Here we go. I'll be back in just a few minutes, folks. See you on the other side.
Which of you, for all his worrying, can add 1 day to his life, 1 inch to his stature? So don't concern yourself so much with the means of life, what you shall eat and drink, or with your bodies, and how they should be clothed. Life is more than clothing. Consider the birds of the air. They do not sow, or reap, or gather into barns, but our Heavenly Father feeds them. Will He not all the more feed you? Are you not worth more than they? Consider the lilies of the field. They do not spin. They do not weave. But not even Solomon in all his glory was so arrayed as one of these. Now, if God so clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow thrown into the fire, will He not all the more clothe you, who have so little faith? Therefore, do not ask, what shall we eat? What shall we drink? How shall we dress ourselves? It is only the faithless who set their hearts on these things. You must first seek the kingdom of God and its righteousness, and everything will be added freely unto you. So do not be anxious about tomorrow. Tomorrow will be anxious for itself. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for what is right, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted in the cause of right, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people abuse you and persecute you and speak all kinds of calumny against you for my sake. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward will be great in heaven. Love your enemies. Bless those who curse you. Do good to those who hate you. Pray for those who persecute you. If you love only those who love you, why should you claim any credit? Even the tax collectors do as much. If anyone strikes you on the right cheek,
Offer the other also.
And if anyone takes away your coat, give him your cloak as well. Give to everyone who asks from you. And if anyone takes away your goods, do not ask for them back. Do not do to others anything you would not have them do to you. Pass no judgment, and you will not be judged. Condemn not, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Be perfect, just as our Father in heaven is perfect. Ask for this gift, and it shall be given you. Seek, and you shall find. Knock, and the door shall be opened. What father refuses his child? If you who are imperfect know how to give what is good to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give to those who ask him?
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Hope that message got something through to you. It always moves me in some way. All right, let me keep this rolling a little bit. And before I do that, go on to a few other things here. I wanted to cover something in this because I've seen a lot of this out there too. Even some of the alt media folks. In fact, I just got stumped when I heard it yesterday. Like, I get it, and some of them are young, and I remember when I was young, my things that I've learned and have developed over time, things I understand at 30 and the way I was different at 20 and even at 40 and 50 than when I was 30 and 40. We're all evolving, hopefully, but we get different perspectives, hopefully at different times in our lives as we get different experiences. In fact, some of these folks that are doing this, and I get it, because I had a young experience is what I had a young man. He was a student of mine, just graduated high school, and is about to go away to college. We were talking one day, and he was saying that I was asking him what he's going to major in. He said philosophy, and I can tell, I see him going in that direction. Kind of, he likes to think, and a bit of a deep thinker, looking beyond just the superficial. And he was talking, and then I said, hey, do yourself a favor, something, it'll help you. Said, but if that's what you're going to go in and try to do and you want to make a living thinking all the time, I said, find a hobby or something you do on a very regular basis, often, maybe even daily, that with your hands. I said, because you're only going to learn so much from books. This wisdom and philosophy, these things like this come from doing and having experiences. So if you just kind of lock yourself away with a bunch of books or in academia or some other place, you won't really get it. And then the other thing, if you're doing this to maybe help people, the only way that you're going to be able to understand how to help people is go through experiences. And be careful what you wish for, because you will suffer. You know, there are Eastern philosophies and people that believe, and even in the heavenly, let's say, philosophy, that when you suffer, it's a way for you to understand and gain an understanding and some compassion for those who are suffering. So that's my only thing with some of these folks in the alt media that are in that younger age group. The way some of the stuff they're not saying isn't wrong, but I guess what I look and go, what have they done? And other than being in politics or something to that effect, they haven't done anything. And Doesn't mean they can't have some good perspectives and say some things that are right or correct. And even if they're wrong, I've gone over this before. If your heart's in the right place, heaven will know, and that's what you'll be judged on. And I'll go into that in a little bit too. The whole. Actually, let me roll into that now, and then I'll go ahead and take it. Go on from there in my list of stuff here to cover. Let me finish this thought up first. So, I think, what have they done? But anyway, so get some experience in life. Go do some other things. And that will help the other side of it. Excuse me. Didn't have a cough button to hit real quick there. But that'll help the philosophical side. And if you really want to help people, then you got to go out and experience the things that they have. But anyway, I heard several of them talking about, well, there's some good things going on here, and they were complaining about the economic side of everything and how it's rough and it's always rough for young people because you haven't started into life long enough and been doing certain things. You got to save this and that. It was the same for my generation and probably some of the generations before mine as well. You don't get it all instantly. But anyway, they were talking about this, and I've heard a couple of them say, well, I support, I support the tariffs. Then as soon as I heard that one, I go, well, there you go. Well, there's problem number one. So let me explain this for them and other folks who are out there touting the tariffs and buying this propaganda that's being put out by the administration about tariffs and what it's, okay. And I'm going to go into this other part as well. I have this in my list, and other folks have said it, but Trump is the operation. He's here to bring us to that next stage they want to take us to and basically destroy America as we know it, at least from the political side. And it's going to require a lot of people's consent to do that. And tariffs is one of those things. He has an economics degree from a very prestigious, the name of his escape, Wharton Business School. I'm assuming they taught some kind of thing about the economics of it, but I will say this for some of the folks out there that, well, who are you to talk about this? I get it. Economics is one of the things I have studied immensely. In fact, I had the privilege one time of interviewing a very well-known economist, Professor Walter Williams. He's passed away since then, a few years back, from what I remember. But I'm interviewing, we're talking offline after the interview, in between the breaks, and even before it, we talked for a few minutes. And at one point, it was one of the nicest compliments I've ever gotten. But he said, hey, what do you have, a master's degree? What's your degree in economics? I said, no, sir, I don't have a degree. I've just read everything you've written, Dr. Soul has written, anything I could get my hands on that Dr. Friedman, the Nobel Prize-winning economist, everything I could get and I didn't just read it once. I read it multiple times, take notes, all kinds of things. And I've lived it. He said, well, you know more than my PhD students. You should come to my school and get a degree in it. I go, I don't really need I wanted to study the things that I've wanted to study, but a piece of paper I don't need a piece of paper from some entity that's part of the system anyway to tell me I know something about something. Doesn't mean I'm the world's expert on it or that I think I'm right about every part of it. In fact, being wrong is a process of learning. But on the tariffs and some of the other stuff, I'm 99.9999999% sure this is dead on. And I'm not just going by what I'm saying, but what some people who've studied the heck out of this, and even when I'm listening to Milton Friedman talk, which I've gone back over recently, he's like, there's not an economist in the last 200 years that kind of disagrees on the basic principles of tariffs. But it doesn't work this way. Let me give you the way it doesn't work. And it'll unveil both at the same time, actually, for those out there that are supporting these tariffs and wondering why we're in such economic. Now, there are other reasons. It's not just the tariffs. We're in economic ruins because we've been spending trillions more. They've been moving money, meaning taking it out of the population's hand, you and me, and moving it to the wealthy. It's been a wealth transfer over and over and over. And these same wealthy, including Trump and many that he's connected to, have figured out a way. The best way for them is not to pay for anything, but to use our money to pay for it. One moment, folks. I'm going to hit the cough button for just a second. Pardon me, my sinuses are killing me today. Have been for the last several days. So here's the way tariffs do not work. It's not that he goes, I'm going to put tariffs on this country at this one. And first of all, whatever you're going to do, you got to do it consistently. One day it's this, the next day it's that. No, it's going to be huge. It's going to be great. It's going to be wonderful. The best thing that's ever been. So you put, let's just say you put 100% or 50. I'm going to use 50 for a moment against country A. Make it whatever country you wish. Now there's someone in that country who produces a pencil. Okay. It costs them, they sell that pencil for $1, let's say. They sell before the tariffs, no tariffs in hand. They sell it. It gets imported into our country by a company here, call it, Pencil Company of America. They don't make it, but they get it from where they can find it cheapest made. And they get it for $1, and they ended up selling it for $1.50 after the rest of the stuff. Forget the profit margin for the moment. But let's just say they end up, keep the numbers nice, $1.50. Well, a 50% tariff is announced against country out there. Well, the producers over there, they're all of a sudden the country A doesn't pay the tariff. And this was even admitted, and he didn't want to admit it. He tried every 6 ways from Sunday not to admit it. I think it was on Fox or something else, but by the current Treasury Secretary. The guy kept asking him, who pays the tariff? Who is it that pays the tariff? He finally had to admit, because this is the way it works, that at the docks, the importer pays the tariff. So now that importer has to pay $1.50 for that pencil, not $1 anymore. And that's a tax that gets paid to the government. Now, maybe in some instances that, depending on profit margins, this and that, maybe they can absorb all that cost. But either way, if it's being imported, that's an American citizen somewhere, that's running a business that's now paying that tax. Not the country that's sending it here. Now, if they can agree, this importer and the other one can agree with this country to take on some of it, whatever. That happens rare, if ever. Because the people on the other end, profit margins in many instances, not on everything, but are very slim. They don't have these wide profit margins where you can absorb these taxes or these tariffs or whatever other cost increased and just absorb them. But anyway, let's go back to our pencil importer here. So he now has to pay a 50 cent, what used to cost him $1, now cost him 50 cents. In most cases, they're going to turn around and pass that on to the consumer. So now when you go shopping for that pencil, it's going to cost $2, not $1.50. So in the end of it, when you pay for it at the counter, you're paying back the tax. I mean, everybody's paying it. But the consumers, however, whether it be the importer at the dock or the consumer when you buy it at the cash register, is paying the tariff, not the country the tariff's being put on. All that does, and I've put this out many times, Milton Friedman said it best, yeah, it is a protective measure. What it protects us against is low prices, paying more for anything we consume. And the other thing it does, it starts to restrict that. Anytime the government taxes anything, it restricts, it lessens that activity. People don't want to pay the money for it. So that's basic economics and tariffs. So if you're supporting the tariffs and wondering why the economy and everything else is going to, well, there you go. I mean, hello, McFly, right? I say that easily too, folks. It's a funny line from the movie, but you get the point, I think. So this is on purpose. They understand. He understands what tariffs do. And this is to start restricting the flow of stuff that we have coming in here and to make it more expensive for us. It's not a good thing, folks. It just isn't. Okay. So I'll cover this next since I'm on this anyway. I'll get to but let me redo it. I think I've done it maybe a little bit, but for all those out there, so what is Operation Trump? How did it come about? Okay, folks, I think I covered this a little bit. You're trying to manage and control all these people. Now, there's a section of people out there that are resisting. Take, for instance, if right now these troops got deployed by Harris, Biden, Obama, or a Clinton, these same people would be losing their minds. They'd be waving the flag and the Constitution, screaming about freedom. But they're not doing that right now, are they? For the most part. No, now they're supporting it. They brought this guy in to help manage this group of people. They had to see how much it would go along. And the build up to the 2016 election, and he was prepped, I think. They knew about the Epstein list before all that stuff. But they brought this guy. Everybody started going in and supporting him more and more. They're getting behind him. They got sycophants. It just seemed like no matter what this guy did, what he said, anything, people would just go along. That's the Pied Piper they needed. They needed the Pied Piper to get the group that was most resistant under control. Because the other side that goes along with a lot of stuff anyway, and then it's already this progressive and socialist ideology, they're kind of already going along with it. So they're kind of already under control to a certain point. They needed this guy to come in to get these ones that like the ones that would show up at January 6th, to get them under control. And that's what he's been doing. That is Operation Trump. I think, and I'm going to go, I don't know if it was in the plan to start with to have him there and then pull Biden in, or it rolled out because they didn't get what they wanted with the scamdemic. Not enough people, and he started to lose support that way. In fact, if you go after he was out of office, and every time he talked about the great and wonderful shot, people started booing. And I remember there's some of those same people that I was talking about earlier that said, this police state is coming, making statements like if Trump doesn't get off this thing about supporting this death shot and this whole scamdemic, I won't support him. He never did. He still touts it as the best thing ever, and these people support him anyway. So he's here to get that group that would normally resist to things like this to not resist so they can bring it in. Go back to 2030, Agenda 2030. Well, we're not that far away. Think about it. We have one more election before it gets here. And all these things they wanted to get in, the police state, the government being able to spy and watch everyone. Palantir, anybody? These databases, all this AI stuff coming in. There's a bunch of stuff that they have to get done in place if they want this Agenda 2030 to be ready on time, so to speak, or to get us to where they need to get us, meaning under control as fast as possible. And now they got the guy in the office to do it. Here's another example. I played the clip of the pastor who's now in charge of the White House Office of Faith. I mean, anybody can see that this is a straight crook. So why did he choose this person and put them out there? Number one, it's to mock, but it's also, if you'll follow that and believe him after that, then you'll follow anything. It's kind of, this whole mental control thing they do, kind of control tests to see how far they can get away with or what people will accept. That was the whole purpose of the scamdemic, and to take out certain people. Look, folks, one of the ways that they're going to cut this budget, or if you want to cut this budget, is they're going to have to get rid of the people or the biggest cost. Two of the biggest costs are the boomers, the people on Medicare and Social Security and Medicaid. So they're not going to stop spending money. Please. They're printing it up like crazy, and it will continue. And they'll run this. It's basically a Bernie Madoff scam, except Bernie Madoff didn't have a currency printer. He couldn't legally print up money. If he could have kept the scam going. Because all that happened to him really was more people started drawing out than were putting in. But if he would have had the money printing thing to send those people their money, the scam would have kept going. That's the only difference between Bernie Madoff and the government is they have the legal authority and the printing presses to do it, and attached to the Fed Reserve. So this operation that he's here to take us. That's why all this stuff is being done. Tariffs and people are supporting it. Police state and people are supporting it. He's going to do this. The government's going to do that. The government's going to solve this problem for you. All these people that call themselves Jeffersonians and wave the Constitution and the flag. It's those people that that are now under control. Now some of them are starting to wake up a little bit, but for the most part, they're caught under this spell. I pray they wake up. We need them to. Whatever side of the aisle you want to put yourself on, we all need the other person to kind of be aware. Remember, I'm not the first person to say it, but a lot of the founding fathers, an educated or a populace who understands things is a danger. And this is the other thing I've seen, and this is why it goes along, why they had to bring this Pied Piper. Folks, doesn't matter what form of government it is, the citizenry is always the greatest threat to that government. The citizenry, no matter if the Constitution says consent or not. I don't care if you're a king in England or a dictator in South America, Africa, wherever else in the world, even the Communist Party in China. Their biggest enemy is their citizenry. Because at any moment, that switch could flip and you lose power and control just like that. It really is that precarious for them. I've seen have this meme before or pic where it's right on the edge of a cliff, and it has a board that extends out over the edge of the cliff, and it has some government politician, talking at a podium, and on the other end of the board is a bunch of people standing on. All they got to do is walk off that board, and it's gone. Like the balancing of a teeter-totter, right? You put government on one side of it. They may be up in the air because they have 1,000 people, but as soon as those 1,000 people get off the other end of the teeter-totter, bam, they're slamming against the ground. That's it. That's the way it works, folks. So we will always be the biggest threat to government. Not foreign countries, not terrorism, none of this. You and I are the biggest threat to any government. And that's why they had to bring Operation Trump in to take us where they want to go. Look at it, folks. He's literally saying things that aren't even true. And it's not an accident. In fact, let me pull it. Give me 1 second. Okay, the gaslighting. I wanted to go into this to the end. This is literally right out of some of the manuals for mind control and the other thing. But this is why he and others gaslight people. It's one of the most dangerous mind manipulations that there is, because it goes right to the core of a person's ability to trust themselves to believe what they're seeing. Meaning, I'd say, the sky's blue. If I can get you, by gaslighting you one way or the other, to say, well, I see it's blue, but maybe it's not, and question my own ability Gaslighting, denial of observable facts, rejects or invalidates experiences, no matter how valid or substantiated the experience is. It's a contradictory message that's meant to alter between small omissions in truth and outright denial. It helps rewrite the past conversations, past conflicts, or incidents are recast in ways favoring the manipulator's narrative. It's a form of isolation and dominance. Over time, the victim becomes unable to validate their own perspective, and they lose trust in themselves and become completely reliant upon the gaslighter for the correct version of events. It's an emotional undermining. The manipulator will frame themselves as the voice of reason or the caretaker, portraying the victim as overly sensitive, confused, unstable, not able to discern reality themselves. The hallmark result is an erosion of the victim's confidence in their own judgment, ensuring the manipulator effectively remains in control of dictating how the victim interprets reality. Gaslighting relies on pre-existing emotional bonds and vulnerabilities. Now think of how that applies right here. All the stuff he said to get people to go along with him. And they have an investment in him, an emotional one. Hate and, like love, whatever you want to call it. The emotional influence, they use fear, guilt, fear of conflict or rejection. I mean, how many are non-MAGA now? You non-MAGA, you MAGA people that are going against him. Oh, you're being disloyal to this guy, right? They use that guilt to leverage the commitment. If the victim challenges the manipulator, then they act inconsistent with their earlier commitment, which is against normal human nature, right? If we make a commitment to something, we don't want to have to go back and, oh, well, I was wrong in that. People, us humans, it's why it's in the Constitution or the Declaration. People will suffer injustices as long as his injustices are sufferable. And that's one of the reasons. It's a misuse of authority to manipulate will claim as an authority of understanding. The victim's mental and emotional state, example, you're overreaching, let me help you see it clearly. This creates a dynamic where the manipulator seems calm, clear, rational, and it plays upon the victim's predefined nature to acquiesce to an authority figure. It also uses withdrawal and intermittent validation. The gaslighter will sometimes deploy partial acceptance or fleeting praise to keep the victim hopeful. It is an intermittent reinforcement, short little burst of praise or agreement, followed by sustained denial of reality. Emotional whiplash fosters dependency since the victim sometimes experiences validation, then they cling to that manipulator's perspective in hopes of once again regaining that sense of harmony. That's why everything's going back and forth. One day it's this, one day it's that, one day it's this. This is right out of the books, folks. It's not accidental. Over time, this slowly changes not only discrete beliefs, but also the entire process of how an individual interprets reality. Gaslighting relies on secrecy and confusion. That's Operation Trump in a nutshell. And let me go add something on. There's a couple, I mentioned them before. Very popular podcasters, whatever you want to call it, have shows. I don't think that when they started they were called podcasts. But anyway, they've taken one of the main ones out there, one of the biggest ones. They brought other people in, such as people from Fox News and And I'm not saying the people knew about this. The puppets didn't know. They were being manipulated and things were being changed to get. Let me cover something. This whole thing with controlled opposition. Controlled opposition does not mean that they're directly controlling this person. Because everybody said, Trump's not, he's his own man. Nobody's controlling him. No, maybe not directly, or maybe so. Can't say. But even if they don't, it's better if the puppet believes that he's all doing it themselves, that no one is controlling them. I'm not so sure in this, but let's just say, for argument's sake, for the moment, he's not under direct control. All you need to be able to do is predict what that individual will do if set of circumstances A is thrown upon them. If A happens, then they'll do B. If C happens, they'll do D. It's just like the rat in the maze, folks. The rat in the maze with the cheese on the other side isn't being told to go left or right. The wall is put in front to manipulate so that you only have the ability to go right or left, and then it's directed all the way to the other side. It's the same thing. That's controlled opposition. You don't need to have direct control. You just need to be able to predict what the person's going to do and then set the circumstances to force them in that way. So this is what I think has happened to some of the people in the alt media, especially one of the biggest persons. And you can, because definitely this and a few of the others, but one I'm talking about, has a ton of pride, massively. In fact, they can't go 2 seconds in, it seems, about, I was right. Oh, I was right about this. I was right about that. I'm right. I'm right. I'm right. I mean, I. And they're not saying that as I, Captain. It's all about them and how they were right and how they know and how they're this. Okay. But what that displays, especially if someone's watching you from the outside to try to figure out how to manipulate you, is you have a giant ego, which can be, judo used against you. So what they did was create the situation by bringing other people in to dilute the alt media. And then at the same time, they went after this person's business, knowing that would put anybody in a state of panic. It would automatically, anybody, if somebody comes after everything one of us owns, our home, our livelihood, the rest of it, it's going to put us in a state where we don't make the best decisions and might not be able to see the clearest. And that's what happened in this incident. Put them through court battles, all this stuff, all to distract, and at the same time have someone come along like Trump and some other rich billionaires. Say, I try not to mention names to protect the guilty and the innocent, and offer a way out that they were going to be pushed to because they want that recognition, they want all these other things. So if you pressurize them and put pressure around them, and then allow that one escape valve in this one way, it's the only escape valve where they're naturally going to take it, and then you have them where you want them. Now, especially if they don't see it and are all confused in moments of trauma, right? That's what they do to us all the time. That's the gaslighting part as well. You're in a constant state of trauma, which puts you in a constant state of confusion, all these things. So they use this to move that person in that direction, and then they offered the solution. Problem, reaction, solution. In fact, people like this that have been talking about conspiracies have been saying this forever, and it got used on them. And like I said, I'm giving them the benefit of a doubt that they didn't sell out. Because anybody can be fooled on any level. You, me, anybody. It's not a crime to be fooled or a sin to be fooled. Because you're being manipulated. You're being controlled. Well, some of these heads in the alt media that they had to use as well to get people to follow along, the Pied Piper, and go along with them. This was the perfect way to do it. And they're not even aware of it, I don't think. And then notice all these things are after, they kind of get accomplished what they wanted to, and you get the new administration in. Some of these things that their business is going away, and the rest of it, once they moved over into this area and kind of went into the arms of the people that were there to kind of, be that net, or now we got them in the spot we want them, it's gone away a bit, almost completely, so it seems. And now they're all in. I mean, it doesn't matter what this administration does, they still will battle it. And you can see it when I'm watching and listening to them. Now, they get it to some extent, like over the Epstein files, for instance. Well, and now they make excuses. Oh, well, this, that, good things are happening over here, though. Well, look, this is the one I can't stand. Really, and you can tell, this is a way to tell that the person hasn't come out of this gaslighting, whatever the victim part of it is. They'll say, well, they don't want to come out totally. I'm not totally against Trump. He does some good things, so I'm going to say good things about the good things he does, and I'm going to go, then I'm going to say the things about when he does bad things. Right? They're caught. They cannot admit it themselves. They just can't bring themselves to say, I got fooled. And they're in the middle of it still. We're all in the middle of it still. They may not realize it till their neighborhood where they live or work or whatever, it looks like DC. May not. We'll see. But that's kind of the way that whole thing has gone about. And I'll try to explain it again, because I think about it all the time, better ways to explain it, to get through to people, to kind of help them understand. I'm not condemning these folks, and I'm not trying to hammer them and say, oh, you're this and you're that. That's not, we have enough of that. Even if it's you. Look, a little kindness and compassion and understanding. Instead of throwing the rocks at the people, oh, that person's wrong. Okay. All right. Can we just, what, you've never been fooled? Nobody's ever, whoever's not been wrong or made a mistake out there, go ahead and raise your hand. Send me a text. Hit me up. I say, I've never been wrong. I've never made a mistake. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Must be difficult to live in a world like that. All right. So that's kind of the way it's been gone down. Now, I know I've told you folks about an Epstein list I'm working on. Look, this is research that I've been doing, and it's basically a few books. A main book, I'm going to tell you, it's 2 volumes, but it's Whitney Webb's One Nation Under Black Mountains. I mean, it's 1,000 pages. But she basically goes back through decades of history, all the way back to the 20s, and kind of goes through, it's phenomenal. It's probably the modern day equivalent of The Naked Communist, written by Cleon Skousen. He was the first person to go back and kind of cover the Russian Revolution and a lot of it, how it led up to it, in a historic way. In fact, the FBI used it as a reference manual for years. It was in their vault of books. So anyway, what I've basically been doing, because I didn't come up with this idea to start with. Let me explain this. I've been doing this research. I've read the book for several years now. It's so big and there's so much in it. It makes your head spin, just even like going through 2 pages of it. There's so many names and what they've done and connections this way, that way. It's crazy. But I wasn't trying to make a list. I was just kind of going through, and in fact, me and my wife one time, how they do those, if you've ever seen a movie where they're, following a mafia family, they start with the Don and they go down to the Capos, one of those things out. We always talked about kind of making one with it, but I don't know that we have enough walls in our house. Right? It's just too much. But anyway, so I came across a post not too long ago, I guess a week or two ago now, where somebody took the time to go through all of these clips of all the times in the past where this person from the now leaders of the FBI, Trump, his children, this one, talking about, the Epstein files and how they needed to come out and this and that and blah, blah, blah. It was several minutes. And then that's where I kind of got the idea. I was like, well, you know what? Hold on. I'm kind of been going through this. Why don't I just make it into a list? The government can't seem to come up with one. None of these other alt media places that have money flowing in, this and the other thing, the FBI, who had all these things that have endless resources. I've kind of been taking notes and doing all this beforehand, so let me see if I can somehow figure out how to put this in a list form and make it into this. So that's what I've done so far. Okay. So it's about currently 240 something pages. It's huge. It's mad. I mean, not to steal his lines, but it's huge. It's massive. It's crazy. Okay. Where did I had it on my desktop to come up with. Oh, don't tell me I've lost it already. Oh my goodness. Okay, viewed and corrected. Here we go. Okay. So what I'm doing right now, I kind of got all the names in the list. All right, let me preface this as well. Okay, this isn't a list of his little black book of sexual blackmail parts. I'm sure some of the people in the list are on that as well. But this is basically a list of all the connections in multiple ways and all the people listed and what their connections were and how they were connected and what they did and the entities that they're involved with. So it's going to be people of all kinds. And maybe some of these folks just they have nothing to do with that blackmail side. Maybe some of it isn't even criminal. Not sure about that part, because everything this guy seems to be doing was criminal. So anyway, it's a list. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of a preview, because now what I'm doing, I have a list. I'm trying to go through a way and put it and format it, and the information along with it. So it's, you can read through it and follow and kind of get an idea of what was going on. The other thing you're going to see through this, because from one chapter and one thing to the next, you'll see the names repeated a few times through it. I guess I could have gone, but it was 200 something pages of finding the duplicate names and then trying to put all the information up underneath one. It's a lot. It's just a lot of work, just even formatting and going back through it. So I'm almost at 100 pages of doing that part of it now. So I got about 100 and something left. But I wanted to give you kind of an idea and a preview of what it is. The list itself, I think it's better to put it out all at one time. But I will go through some of it with you here today to give you an idea of what it is that I'm doing and how this thing is going on. Okay. So it's basically starting back at the beginning of the story. So here you go. I'm going to read it like I have it, like I've written it out. So family members, Paula Stolovsky, I believe that's the middle name, Epstein. Who it is, that's Jeffrey Epstein's mother, Roll homemaker. Seymour Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein's father. Roll, groundskeeper for the New York Parks Department. Mark Epstein. Who? He's Jeffrey Epstein's brother. The role he played, he was a property manager and real estate investor. The entities that he helped manage or control, Osa Properties, St. Thomas Development, the connections that he had to him. Managed Epstein's real estates, may have helped shield or transfer assets. He owned the apartment where the MC2 model stayed, linked to the housing that was trafficking girls. Okay, so that's kind of give you an idea. It's going to who, the role, the entities, the connections. Now, I will, over time, after this gets put out, go back and kind of do a report, basically. If anybody's interested, if this takes in and people are interested after they want to know more, I've kind of put it this way so you could go in and do your own research into it and find out exactly what these are. But it, it would be, 1,000 pages more to list every, what OSA Properties is and this. But I will try and go back. I've thought about doing this. There was an old radio guy that used to just basically read from a book during times where he didn't have, or it was just part of his show. So maybe I'll do it that way or do some kind of book report on it. So here we go. Let me continue. Hopefully this makes sense so far. Educational institutions and individuals, okay, from this particular section. The Interlochen Center for the Arts. What this was, it was a prestigious music and arts boarding school in Michigan. Its connection to Epstein. Epstein attended on a scholarship at age 14. Later, he donated large sums of money from 1990 to 2003. He seemed to have used it to recruit teens. They had a facility that was named after him, the Jeffrey Epstein Scholarship Lodge. Now, after all this went down, it was renamed the Green Lake Lodge. One of the other institutions, the Copper Union, New York University, Courant Institute, the connections they had to him, institutions where Epstein studied but did not graduate. The relevance of them highlighted as part of Epstein's limited academic background. Next little section. This is going as the book flows. Musicians and British contacts. Jacqueline Depre. My French stinks, so sorry. The last name is P-R-E with the accent above the E. Who is this? It's a renowned British cellist. The connection to Epstein. Epstein claimed to have met her in 1971 and used her to gain access to British royalty. Her connections, real-life connections to the Jewish community through marriage to Daniel Barenboim, Barenboim. Okay. To Daniel Barenboim, sorry. Who is he? Israeli-Argentine pianist and conductor. His connection, he was married to Jacqueline, possibly linked Epstein to some Jewish connections and the musical elite. Okay, I'm going to jack up this a few of them in here. I'll just spell it for you. Yehudi. Yudi? Menuhin. Menuhin. Itzhak Perlman. Pinchas, Pinchas Zuckerman, who they're famous Jewish musicians. The connections, they were friends of the Duprees, may have been part of the elite musical circle that Epstein tried to gain access to, or did gain access to. All right, you'll recognize this name. Prince Andrew, Duke of York, obviously a member of the British royal family. In this area, his part of Epstein's elite social circle, Epstein developed a close relationship with him, possibly stemming from early connections via the Duprees, helped shut down arms corruptions and investigations from the British government. He attended Mar-a-Lago's celebrity tennis tournament with Epstein and Maxwell in 2000, accused of abuse by Virginia Giuffre, photographed with her and Maxwell, stayed at Epstein's New York City home. Now, this isn't all of it. Remember I said you may see the names again in later parts where we're talking about different areas of things. So hopefully you can follow so far. I'm just now at page 2. James Goldsmith. Who is this? A British tycoon and corporate raider. His connection to Epstein was seen at his New York mansion, suggesting elite UK business connections. There's more to follow with him later as well. The Dalton School connections that were mentioned previously. What is the Dalton School? It's a prestigious private school in New York. The connection to Epstein was Epstein taught math and physics there from 1974 to 1976. Later was accused of inappropriate behavior with students. Peter Branch was the headmaster of Dalton School during Epstein's tenure. He denied hiring Epstein, said concerns about teaching led to Epstein's departure. Donald Barr, who the predecessor to Peter Branch, who likely hired Epstein. His role, kind of history of it a little bit. When I go through these role parts, they have different entities, things that they were involved with. The OS, he was part of the OSS in World War II era, is U.S. intelligence. English professor at Columbia, later a novelist. He wrote a book called Space Relations, a science fiction with themes of sex slavery in it. Connection, allegedly hired Epstein at Dalton and has been subject of speculation due to the novel's themes and Epstein's hire. Now, this is one thing the author does in it. This book was well researched, and in it, there are the links to many of the articles and everything else. And I've gone in and looked due to this stuff, searching as well as I can. So if you don't have the picture of something, the actual thing, you have to say allegedly. All this, and remember, and I would want this, hopefully you would too, you're innocent until proven guilty, right? None of these people want to step into a real court of law with like a prosecutor like Jim Garrison going after him. All right, next on the list, William Barr, son of Donald Barr. He was the U.S. Attorney General under Bush Sr. and Trump. Role, former CIA officer from 1971 to 1977. Oversaw the Department of Justice when Epstein died in custody in 2019. Connections, deep intelligence ties. His father hired Epstein at Dalton. Richard Ravitch, Ravitch, who he's a real estate magnate and political figure. Connection, orchestrated Donald Barr's removal as Dalton headmaster. Scott Spicer, who he is a Dalton alumnus, class of 1976. Connection, witnessed Epstein's inappropriate conduct with female students, confirmed his presence at student parties. Paul Grossman, who, another Dalton alumnus, class of 78, also witnessed Epstein's presence at student parties and described him him being present there as quote-unquote weird. Unnamed female Dalton student who attended Dalton during the Epstein's tenure there, claimed Epstein made advances towards her and other female students, reported him to the headmaster. Miscellaneous programs and projects. The Science Honors Program at Columbia University. Creator Donald Barr. What it was advanced Saturday classes for the gifted high schoolers. Possible connections. Epstein may have attended this, suggesting a long-running link with Barr. The Talent Preservation Project. What it is a therapy and research program for underachieving high school students, run by Donald Barr. Connection, again, possibly linked to Epstein's early educational trajectory. The OSS, CIA intelligence ties. Donald and William Barr both had deep roles in U.S. intelligence. Education and recruitment gateway. Epstein used schools, Interlochen, Dalton to gain access to teen and build elite ties. Sexual exploitation network origins. Connections from these early institutions and elite circles foreshadowed his later criminal enterprise. And I'm reading this from a list where I have, they're indentated and bulleted. So when you hear me stop and go, I'm basically going to the next bullet point. Music and aristocratic connections. Epstein fabricated or exaggerated musical claims, possibly, allowing him to insert himself into elite circles via the Duprees, Bar and Boehm, and British royalties. I have to say alleged because, according to some witnesses, he was actually a talented pianist. Never heard him, don't know. Lynn Koppel, née Greenberg, role daughter of Greenberg, affiliation, a private citizen, connection to Epstein. Epstein allegedly recommended to Bear Stearns by her or her social network. She is mentioned as possibly having been tutored by Epstein at the Dalton School or having recommended him to her father, Alan Greenberg, though she publicly backed a different account of their first meeting. James Cayenne, Cayne, he was an executive at Bear Stearns. His connection is another senior mentor to Epstein at Bear Stearns, possibly protected him during controversies. Paula Heil Fisher. Role, she was an assistant opera producer. Affiliation, Bear Stearns, former Bear Stearns, and then an independent affiliation. Connection, she was a former romantic partner of Epstein, provided early personal insights into Epstein. Steve Hoffenberg, role, owner of Towers Financial Corporation. Connection, later partnered with Epstein in financial schemes, described Epstein's Bear Stearns exit as related to illicit activities. Giuseppe Tome, Tome, role, executives. He was an executive and overseas operative, I guess. Affiliation, Batch and Company, BACHE, and E.F. Hutton. Connection, he's tied to insider trading case around Bear Stearns merger and activities that may have involved Epstein. Let me stop here for just a second. His original thing at Bear Stearns, they tried to make up all these reasons that don't make sense of why he left Bear Stearns. The truth of it seems to most likely be that he left Bear Stearns because of some insider trading going on with the next name I'm about to come up with. Edgar Bronfman Sr. Role, President, Chairman, a prominent New York Jewish community, and Seagram's Company Limited. They had their liquor, Seagram's, Empire Trust, Bank of New York, and he was a founding member of Mega Group. His connection, he's a powerful financial figure implicated in insider trading, linked through Bear Stearns and shared circles. He courted Maxwell in 1991, and I believe that's Robert Maxwell. Anne Bronfman, Rose socialite, Nee Loeb. Her last name was Loeb. She's part of the Loeb banking family. Married allied Bronfmans with Kuhn Loeb dynasty. Same circles as the Epstein patrons. Dennis B. Levine, Levine. He was a M&A specialist for Drexel Burnham Lambert. Connection. Central to the 1980s insider trading scandal, shared clients and corporate circles with Epstein's associates. Sir James Goldsmith. Role, a financier and a corporate raider. Affiliation, Goldsmith Family Trust and the Claremont Club. I believe that's in England. It was a club that was used by elite circles in England, and they had a sexual blackmail ring going on there as well. Epstein frequented Goldsmith's mansion in the 70s, involved in overlapping circles of influence in European finance. Isabel Goldsmith, heiress, daughter of James Goldsmith, appears in Epstein's Black Book, known from Epstein's early social circles. Stuart Pivar, Pivar, role, he was an art collector, various art and scientific societies, early close friend, met Epstein at Goldsmith Mansion, remained in contact through later years. Robert S. Pride, role, president of Rothschild Incorporated. That name should ring a bell. Oversaw major corporate takeovers aligned with Epstein-linked players, involved in Robert Maxwell-related deals. Pierre and Rothschild Incorporated were the architects of Sir James Goldsmith's 84-85 takeover of Crown Zellerbach and Robert Maxwell's 89 takeover of Macmillan and Company. These networks, which involved Goldsmith, later intersected with Epstein. I'm on page 7, folks. Okay. Gerald Goldsmith, banking executive for E.F. Hutton and Rothschild Incorporated. Connection, part of the broader network of financial executives interacting with Epstein and that Epstein was exposed to. Warren Einstein, Einstein, private individual, affiliation non-applicable, N.A. Personal friend of Epstein, received money from him, identified in a Regulation D violation report. William Casey, role, CIA director, former lawyer. Affiliations, CIA, Rogers and Wells law firm. Connection, his law firm represented Bear Stearns when Epstein was there. Possible intelligence link there for Epstein. Back to, I think this is another one, James Cayenne, C-A-Y-N-E. Told you the names would come up more than once through different sections because of their connections to that section. Just easier for me to do it this way. Dates, late 70s through 1981, with later mentions, who he was, an executive again at Bear Stearns, hired by Alan Greenberg. Cayenne also mentored Epstein during his time at the bank. He denied that Epstein was forced to leave Bear Stearns, supported the claim that Epstein left on his own free will to start his own business. And that may be true because he did it to protect higher-ups. This may have been one of his initial steps into that circle, and they knew he was a guy who could keep his mouth shut. But it gave him, I guess, kind of a favor zone, like a Roy Cohn favor bank. Paula Heil Fisher, date, was there while Epstein was at Bear Stearns from the 70s to 81. She was described as Epstein's former girlfriend and now an opera producer. Opera production. She was Epstein's girlfriend while he worked at Bear Stearns. Sorry for a little bit to repeat there, but I've been able to go back through hundreds of pages of notes and stuff, just kind of listing as it goes. Next name, Stephen Hoffenberger, post-1981, an associate of Epstein. No specifically mentioned business Epstein, but he was later an associate of Epstein. There'll be more about him, I think, later. I think I messed up this note because it says connection to Epstein. He claimed that Epstein, and I didn't put anything after that. So, forgive me, folks. This ain't perfect. Again, Edgar M. Bronfman, 81 to 86, with clear earlier connections. Chairman of Seagram's. Seagram's be out of Bronfman's company, Seagram, was involved in the 1981 insider trading case that led to the SEC investigation of Bear Stearns, which included an interview with Epstein. Bronfman had close relationships with Giuseppe Tome, a figure at the center of the insider trading scandal. The text suggests that Epstein may have known Bronfman through shared connections at philanthropic organizations like the United Jewish Appeal and the Jerusalem Foundation, which Epstein's mentor, Alan Greenberg, was also involved in. Once again, Giuseppe Tome, 81 through 86, former head of overseas operations for Batch and Company and E.F. Hutton, or Batch and Company. Tome was found guilty of insider trading relating to the 1981 Seagram's takeover bid of St. Joe Minerals. He had a close personal and business relationship with Edgar Bronfman. The text suggests that the insider trading affair, in which Tome was a key figure, may have been a marked entry for Epstein into these circles. Page 9, I'm going to finish this up at page 10 and let it go from there. Just a taste of what's coming. I'll go through a little bit of it, but hopefully I'm going to have the whole list working to try to get that done for you guys and release it next Thursday. Dennis B. Levine, 81 through 85, with later connection, a prominent merger specialist for Drexel Burnham Lambert. Levine was sued for insider trading in the same 81 Seagram's case. He was a key player in the hostile takeover of Revlon by Ron Perlman, who later later dined with Epstein. He was also involved in Sir James Goldsmith's takeover of Crown Zellerbach, a figure who had known Epstein since the early 70s. Sir James Goldsmith, 70s, 84 to 85 and 89. Remember, he's a corporate raider and a member of the Claremont Club. None specified for Goldsmith himself as far as business and entities, but he was involved in the takeover of Crown Zellerbach. Goldsmith had a long-standing business relationship with the Rothschild family, who were also tied to the 84-85 takeover of Crown Zellerbach. A former friend of Epstein, Stuart Piver, claims to have first met Epstein at Goldstein's mansion in early 70s. Goldsmith's daughter, Isabel, also had contact information in Epstein's little black book. Last name for today, Gerald Goldsmith, 1982, Executive Vice President, E.F. Hutton, before leaving Rothschild Incorporated. No direct family relationship to Sir James Goldsmith. His connection to Epstein is through his work at E.F. Hutton, the same company where Giuseppe Tome, a key figure in the 81 insider trading case, also worked. So that's kind of the way it's flowing, folks, kind of what's in it. Tons more many, many things to come. I'm going to take a short little break after all that reading. Come back and wrap this up for you for today. I think I've covered most everything. I could go on literally for another hour just reading the names. I will save you a bit of that torture. Hopefully it's somewhat interesting and you get a few things out of it. But maybe you can already see from just those first 10 pages how deep this goes, all the way back to the Rothschild family. These huge corporate entities, and we're in the 70s and 80s right now, so more to come. But this thing goes so deep and so vast, and Trump, eventually his connections come into all this too, even beyond the sexual part, the finance part. There's going to be a part where Roy Cohn comes into this. And I said this last week. You guys want to call for names to be released and connections to be released. Start throwing the name of Roy Cohn out and Robert Maxwell. These were a huge connection for him. And this all goes deep, dirty insider trading, which they all get away with, moving their money, hiding it, all kinds of stuff. So, all right, I'm going to take a little break and I'll be back to wrap this up, I think, in just a few minutes.
Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Come, O blessed of my father, and inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me.
I was naked, and you clothed me. I was a prisoner, and you visited me. I was sick, and you came to me. You will ask, when did we do this for you? Whoever does this to the least of my brethren, he does it to me.
For he who would be great among you must be your servant. He who would be the first must be your slave.
Just as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many.
Must change. Men must change.
This is KC from Ground Control. Is there anybody out there? This is KC on transmission 177.6. Is there anybody out there? This is Sergeant C from the Resistance. Is there anybody out there? I don't know, sir. Maybe there's just no one left.
Before kingdoms change, men must change.
And welcome back to the show, folks. Little brief pause there for a moment. Hopefully some good advice there in between it. Now, I'm going to go back for just a few minutes and then we're going to finish this up. So, remember I talked about, it's always the question. The question is who decides what is. For example, I'm going to use this foreign policy, America's interest abroad. The real question is who decides what America's interests are. And that list I went through, it was people like that sponsor and take control of our intelligence agencies and our government. Those have been the people that have been deciding what America's interest is. And that's important because it frames everything, right? The real problem has been, and still is now, if you want to define America's interests, that has always meant the interest of big business, just like I said, and the people who own and run them. And this is part of the whole scam, folks. The American government is, in this instance, it's not the American people. The Russian government isn't the Russian people, the Japanese, etc., etc. Governments are still run by the same people, the people with the money and the power to run them. The shell, the American corporation, it's all just a shell game. And it's still the same people now, different factions may be fighting within control of it, for control of it, but it's still the same thing. So when you hear all this, the president's going to, take care of these kinds of people. We're going to get rid of this. We're going to get, who decides who's that? Who are the bad people? It's not a good thing, folks. And we can take control of this back. But I wonder sometimes, and it just may be the case, this government, one way or another, may have to collapse. But I don't see that directly in the cards immediately unless millions of people come together. They seem to be driving us towards this new 2030 agenda where we're constantly surveilled. And remember earlier I was talking about they had to get this group that resists under Operation Trump to go along with everything. Because when they finally, or if they decide to finally switch the currency, whatever it is they're going to do, you would assume certain groups would resist and the rest of it. Well, part of what I see this police state is coming. Notice he's now federalized the local police in D.C. And I've always known that if they're going to at some point, oppress us completely, like the Hunger Games or some of these other dystopian movies that we see, there's not enough of the army to do it with. So I kind of see the danger in federalizing the police. Then every state has National Guard. So you can federalize the police, no longer, little town America police. Now they're part of the federal government, augmented by National Guard. So when they do flip this or do something like change the currency, all this other stuff they're going to do, they may already have the troops on the ground to help it. Or the next scamdemic, right? Think of it this way. During the last scamdemic, when you couldn't, don't leave your house, you got to wear a mask, all this. What if the police forces had been federalized, augmented by National Guard, FBI, and don't forget, they're hiring ICE agents like crazy. So do you think, let's just say, for one argument's sake, that he's doing this all for a good cause, and it's to really make America great again, and he puts all this police state, all this surveillance state together, and then steps away from it. What? The next person and the next person down the line are the wealthy, that all these other people that control the government aren't going to use it against us? Come on, folks. Look, if you believe that, got some timeshare for you on the Brooklyn Bridge in swampland in Florida, okay? Come on now. Help a brother and sister out, right? HBO, HSO. Help a brother out, help a sister out. Here you go. Here's another perfect example of that. Okay, I don't know if you follow this, but NVIDIA, which is a company that makes all these chips that we use in different computers and other stuff. All right, now remember how we've been being told that China's the enemy. We can't let them beat us to AI, blah blah this and blah blah that. Well, along with the government, NVIDIA has just announced that the government and Trump said we're going to let China have some of these, have access, and they can deal these chips to China, but NVIDIA is going to pay 15% of the company's earnings to the United States. So basically a tariff again. He's postponed the tariffs against China, or the raising of them, for another 90 days. But wait, if they're the enemy and we're trying to beat them and they want to go to war with us and we can't let them have our technology, Clinton gave it to him, and so's Trump. But we're told that this is the enemy. But he's going to go ahead and let them have them. You know what it is, folks? It's an illusion of a race or competition. The entities that exist that control our government control other governments too. It's an illusion. It's would it appear that all the governments, in some way, many ways, are controlled by the same entities. Remember, they all have central banks, and those central banks aren't owned by the country. They're owned by private bankers and institutions, the same ones behind the scenes all the time. Let me go back for just a moment, going over, looking just some of my notes here to what I wanted to go over. Back to that Operation Trump part. This ties in and goes along with that. So the reason they chose Gabbard and other people, they're just front people for the appearance of propriety. And they have their own political agendas too. Let me just cover this one because I see everybody falling for her as well. Okay, so we have a Democratic presidential candidate who barely got a few more votes than Harris. And that's another reason. Let me step right there. The reason they chose Harris to run against him was because they knew, and they set her up as the vice president to run this way, because they knew she was so horrible and most people would not go for her. Or it just kind of left everybody with no choice. Of course, you're going to go for some guy saying at least something that's sane. So they really chose her because they knew she was so unlikable, to put it bluntly. It was just like that. I was talking about the maze with the mice going through it, or the mouse going through it, right? You put this barrier here to make you go right. She was basically that same kind of thing. And like I said, they chose her to be the vice president then. Remember, she dropped out without getting, I think, any or two votes during the primary. She was so out of it. Well, Gabbard was about in the same place. Now, let me ask you this, folks. How hard is it to change someone's political beliefs and their really deep core things? You and I, people on X, YouTube, it's almost impossible, right? To get somebody who's got their beliefs so tightly held that you can't chip away at them at all. I'm not saying it never happens, but I think it's really difficult. Just conversations in the bar, the beauty salon, the grocery store, all these things. People just don't change their beliefs too much. Once they get kind of locked in, they're there. I'm not saying they don't change at all, but hopefully you get my point. Now imagine your beliefs are so deep and you have such convictions that you're going to run for president of the United States. It doesn't even matter under which flag you're going to do it on, meaning D or R. And then all of a sudden, you change them. In the cause you're going to get out, well, this party left me, I don't believe in the way. Really? So whenever I see a politician doing this, knowing what I know and have heard from them behind the scenes, and they say some awful stuff, folks. In this way, if you've ever worked at a restaurant or whatever kind of business, you ever hear the people in the back, behind the scenes complaining about the customers, right? Okay. Well, government does it worse than anybody. The people on Capitol Hill, people at the White House, all over, they talk about us like we are the scum of the earth. I mean, worse than any water cooler conversation you've ever been at in your entire life. Believe me, it's true. So anyway, all of a sudden, this person, after running for president, this is the switches. Oh, now their beliefs have changed. No, what really happened is their political career failed. And this happens all the time. Then they switch parties. Saw this one the moment this person announced it. Okay, because what they can't do, especially after serving as a congressperson or whatever, state representative, they gotta go for the next office. They gotta keep that political career. It's addiction to them. So I saw it when Gabbard flipped over. I said, wow, she's going to go and see. Let's see what she does. If she starts cozying up to the Trump administration, or, not administration, his campaign and all that, switching over. How do you go from having such deep convictions as a presidential candidate here, you're going to abandon all those and switch them over, and now you're for this side? It's not that way. And let me go a little deeper for you. Okay, everybody, oh, she served in the National Guard, she was an intelligence officer in the National Guard, blah 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 blah. All right, I've gone over this one a little bit before. Nothing against the National Guard, but they are not our top tier troops. They don't get the same training. They don't have the same training. They don't have it's 1 weekend a month, folks. 2 weeks a year. I've seen and been parts of groups training these folks. And let me give you another thing about if you're an officer in charge of a unit. This goes for the ones I've even worked for. Okay, they would tell you this in conversations. Maybe not on a public camera, but definitely at dinner with them and from friends. But I've seen it. Okay, so a commander, she commanded an intelligence, unit, and she was in military intelligence, which we often say in the military is an oxymoron. Okay, I've worked for several intelligence groups, flying drones and other stuff, and even intelligence offices with some of the units I've provided services for, let's say. Okay, so what the commander does, they're basically managing the unit, the personnel, the training, the this. They don't even do that. They don't plan it out themselves. They have another shop that does this. So she wasn't on the ground as, some spy or one of the people gathering the intelligence, like on the ground, walking the neighborhoods and this and that. She was just running the unit. It's just like the general manager at, some of the businesses. They're not the ones on the floor moving the merchandise or doing this or doing that, like the actual labor part of it. They're just managing the above levels of it, scheduling this and that. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing or they didn't do anything, but as far as, first off, a National Guard person going from that, I've already said it about Hegseth, a National Guard officer going from that to Secretary of Defense, another front person. It's really the Deputy Secretary and people under there that are running it. Okay. And nothing against those officers, but they don't give you the... I've known people that are active duty, higher ranking people that I love, and they're great people, but they would turn to you and say themselves, and been in the dirt, face in the dirt, bullets flying, the whole 9 yards, would tell you they're not qualified to be the Secretary of Defense. All right? And we're talking higher ranking than these two. So it's just ridiculous, folks, but they're front people. I need you, and I want you to understand that. They're just front people for the appearance of stuff. There's other people running stuff. So do you think a National Guard officer all of a sudden knows how to run the CIA, the National Reconnaissance Office, all this stuff? No, she's just a front person. They're feeding her what they want her to have. And then she's putting out whatever she's being told to put out. That's why they brought her in from the side to put all this stuff about the Russian collusion, all this other stuff. And don't get me wrong. I see all this other stuff out there that says, hey, would you support, putting Obama or putting Clapper or this person in jail for lying or cheating or perpetrating a hoax? Yeah, as long as we're going to have equal justice, and meaning if you're going to put every government person or politician in jail for perpetrating a hoax, I'm all for that, because there won't be a single one of them left. They will be done with them. They'll all be gone in an instant. The Congress, maybe you might have 0.01% that don't end up in there. But that's a good way to get our government, under control. Yeah. So if you're going to put Comey or this one or that one, make sure we have equal application of the laws. But they don't want that, because every politician, come on, folks. How many times Okay, so that would mean every campaign promise they made during a campaign that they didn't keep was a hoax because they didn't keep it. So they'll all be thrown in jail. I mean, literally, every one of them. So, yeah, I'm all for that. or or somebody who forged a government, paperwork somewhere or whatever, lied on a government, because even in the military, lying on a duty roster is forging government paperwork. So if we're going to go after everybody, we're going to need to build like 1,000 new jails, 10 in every state. They're talking about putting up power places. Those numbers will be dwarfed by the new jails we need for all the government people who've worked in every agency, whether they were the heads or down on. Come on. So this is just all, and they're using her as a distraction from all the stuff, not just the Epstein files, but everything they're doing in the background, and to keep it. Remember, this is to keep everybody off balance all the time, gaslighting the heck out of everything. And then I don't know that they have the next person, or they're trying to figure out. I've always, if she had presidential aspirations before, what, you think those went away? She just changed teams and figured out a different avenue to get to where she wanted to go. And trust me, in the position she's in now, and then flipping in the other part, she's proving to them that she'll do what her masters say. No question, get up, blah, blah, blah. I've heard people look, she looks presidential. Well, that's a scary thing, because presidents lie, cheat, steal, kill, and all the rest of it. So it's the same. I wanted to cover that because everybody's just falling for it. And whoever they bring in after him, because I'm not hearing a lot of people really that thrilled about, JD Vance. And the fact that he's backed by Peter Thiel and the rest of them now, that maybe that's the dude that's going to get put in. Because that's going to lead us into the AI revolution. It's Palantir, it's the Bilderberg Group, it's the police state, it's the monitoring. The word's escaping me right now, but they got to have to figure out somebody, and they only have a few years to do it. If 2030 is going to come in on time for them, then this president's not going to step out of office. If we'll see, because I see that's what I'm seeing. Would you support Trump being in office a third term? Maybe there is not another election. Who knows? Anything is possible. And let's go back to that for a second, then I'm going to wrap it up and let you go. Really do appreciate the time with you. It's fun from my side. Hopefully it is yours too. But what I'm not expecting everybody to take everything. Captain Casey, man, he's got it. That's the way it is, blah, 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 or it's impossible. Just allow the possibility of these things, folks. Maybe it's not exactly the way we see it or other things, but allow the space all the time. I try to, even for myself, do this, that these things are possible. I missed one thing I wanted to go through today, and I'll save that for the next show, but kind of the whole foundations of everything spiritual, and of kind of how I see those things. Remember, I told you, if you'll stay with me or join in, whatever it may be, and send me some, folks. Let me know what you think. But on this one, for Christmas, I'm going to go through how I how I exactly found out, or what I know now. Like I said, it wasn't a voice or anything from that. It's just finally something kind of resonated. And it's something that I've seen before. But it's how I know that the master is who he says he is. And to me, there's physical proof of it. And that's what I'll give. But I'm going to go over I meant to do that today, but I got caught up in some other things. So I will do that next week for you. Got it on the top of my list. Just kind of go over how I see it. What is this heaven? What is God? What is all this other stuff? I'm going to cover that one, kind of like I covered Operation Trump today, but just to give you an idea of where the foundations are, or where I'm coming through. And I'm going to say the same thing to you, because I say the same thing to myself. Allow that it might be this way. It's possible that it could be this, and not this that I'm being told. So with that being said, let me leave you with this today. And it kind of moves me like some of the other clips I play for you, but this isn't a clip. But it comes from the movie Kingdom of Heaven. And it's basically a quote out of it, but it says this: Be without fear in the face of your enemies. Be brave and upright so that God may love thee. Speak the truth, even if it leads to your death. Safeguard the helpless. That is your oath. If you are a follower of the Master, that basically is our oath. Thank you, folks, for hanging out with me today, or if you're listening to it as a recording, I appreciate your time. Hopefully you got something out of this. More to come on the Epstein stuff. Try a kind act for a stranger. Try a kind act for yourself. Remember, you are a child of Heavenly Father above, and you have the free will to choose and a lot more power of creation than you may believe. I'm going to go over that one next time too. I meant to do that one. But it's not just creating children, our mind and the power. Think of it this way, folks. Your children, if you have them, or if you had them, they have all the same abilities you do. Do they not? They come from you. So why would it not be the same from heaven above? So we do. You have a lot more power of creation. That power is in your mind and in your will, which your mind is your soul, your heart. It's kind of the same thing. We just say mind because it's that part of the body. But be brave. Don't worry. We're going to make it through all this. We can and will make it through all of this. As the day's events comes and the news comes, try not to let yourself go on this roller coaster up and down. It's almost, I know it's, if you don't have any belief in anything above yourself or in spiritual thing, it makes it a lot harder. But you can trust in the fact that there is something beyond this. This is just a test, pretty much like a simulation. The only thing you're in danger of losing while you're here is your eternal soul. The body will go at one point in time anyway. But the soul will live on. There is life after this one. And I'm going to leave one more clip just so it's a positive note. I like this. This is what's most important to be right here, folks. And after this, I will let it roll. I won't come back even. Just close off the broadcast after this. Be kind, folks. Have some compassion. Try not to allow ourselves to be taken over by emotion. And don't hate. This thing about I hate, that was the other one I was seeing a lot of this week. Oh, I hate Republicans and everybody voted for Trump and all this. Well, that's going to help a lot, isn't it? Do not allow yourself. In fact, let me read these because this is kind of what I put back for that when I got it. Here we go. Let me read you a few quotes and then I'll go to the next thing. This is a quote from Martin Luther King that I mentioned earlier. I'm here to say to you this morning that some things are right and some things are wrong. Eternally so, absolutely so. It's wrong to hate. It's always has been wrong, and it always will be wrong. It's wrong in America. It's wrong in Germany. It's wrong in Russia. It's wrong in China. It was wrong in 2000 BC, and it's wrong in 2025. You said 1954, but I added that part. Returning hate for hate multiplies hate, adding deeper darkness to a night already devoid of stars. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love, and I'm going to add compassion and the attempt to understand, can do that. Let no man or person pull you low enough to hate them. You create the prison for yourself, not the other way. And folks, we don't have to, have this deep love that the master has for us. It's great if we can develop that, but I think it was JFK that said, don't have to have this deep love for just the ability to allow others to exist and to be tolerant. If you can have to tell yourself or have some kind of compassion, think of what position this person, or the ability to just maybe understand that people that hate, or a lot of what's going on, they're under this control. They've been manipulated, abused. We're all abused and manipulated. Try to think of that next time you want to hate or get angry with someone. But these are the things that are most important, folks. Take care. I'll see you next time. And remember, before kingdoms change, men must change. We have to change the person in the mirror.
Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for what is right, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted in the cause of right, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people abuse you and persecute you and speak all kinds of calumny against you for my sake. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward will be great in heaven.